live now. And it says we're going live. Yes, hello everybody. Welcoming you to Full Course Yellow on the In Pit Lane YouTube page. This is just a chat. We get together, a few friends from In Pit Lane. We get together every Thursday night, just basically to kill some time while we're under lockdown and talk about all things motorsport. Once again, if you'd like to join us here on the panel, you can. It's not just us, I mean, if you'd like to join us and get onto Zoom and put in your 2 bobs worth, then you're more than welcome to join us. There is a link you should see at the bottom of the page there to a jot form, and you just fill out the form, give us your details, and then we can send you the details and the invitation to Zoom. All we ask is that you be a reasonable human being, and that you have a reasonable internet connection, and that you have an interest in motorsport. It's pretty much that simple. No other qualifications are needed. If there were qualifications needed, you wouldn't be seeing these people, and we welcome them once again. There's Pete, there's Doc, there's Chris, and there's Stuart, and we welcome you. Well, we welcome you all to this non-program, as it were. Remember, if you'd like to make any comments or ask any questions, just go to the chat and at the YouTube page, say hello. We'll give you a shout out. And as I said, if you'd like to make any comments or ask any questions of the panel, then just type them in there, and I'll throw the reading glasses on, and we'll see what we can do.
Can we start with a quick question about what the heck have you done to your lighting this week? It looks like we're looking at Casper, the friendly motorsport host.
Yes, I don't know what happened. I did turn that on. It should be at the same level that it was last, but I had to reset the camera for some reason. But I updated the software, and it's done strange things. But I mean, this is pretty much my normal look anyway. I mean, let's face it. There's not a lot of colour there. There's not a lot of blood left. I mean, you get to a point where eventually, sort of, the ratio
with that whole Luke Skywalker halo that he's now a Jedi ghost thing going on.
Yes,
okay.
That's that's it.
Oh, there you go. There you go. The Mandalorian's here with you, giving you company. Then.
Oh yes,
is that what it is?
Yeah, you'll have to explain that one to Brett. I believe he has never watched a Star Wars movie.
I watched the first one.
I don't know.
And I watched about half of the second one and went, "This is just the first one all over again." And I haven't watched one since.
It looks like a turd with a crash helmet on.
Oh, get him a little closer then, Jesus. God, you're a hard man, Chris. There he is. I'll try and work him up to the camera. There he goes. I've always been trying to put something that's on that's better looking than me, because I'm. So there you go. It's not a problem now. I'm not a oil painting. So there you go. You've got to have something better looking than me on anyway. I was thinking you'd be able to get work on your tan or get some hay fever with the new property out in New South Wales at Bathurst you just bought, Brett.
Yes, it was a good little pickup at $1.6 million. I thought, well, might as well just pop out there. I mean, because they are giving us more on the dole at the moment, and I thought, well, thank you, Mr. Morrison and Mr. Frydenberg and Mr. Porter for the incredible amount of money that we're getting on the dole right now. So I thought, well, I could do the regular things and spend it on drugs, alcohol, and hookers, or I could buy a nice house next to Conrod Strait, where I can sit there and watch the race while drinking alcohol, taking drugs, and playing with hookers.
I saw a little cheeky email. I think someone must have CC'd me into it. I thought Stuart had a vested interest as well, though, too. He was behind the project so he could store more cars out there as well. Is there any truth to that rumour, Stuart? No, it's just gonna
I know nothing. I say nothing.
I must say, I was really surprised. $1.6 million. The rumor is that so US-based driver Kenny Abdul is probably the one that they're all saying, because Kenny does run at Bathurst in the 12-hour. He races right around the world. He's got a wonderful, wonderful life. He basically cruises between great race circuits and pretty much just races his AMG Mercedes in whatever.
So you're implying that there's an American driver who's not, shit scared of Bathurst?
No. He's an Australian expat.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
based. He's based in America. He's based in America. There's also David Calvert-Jones. And obviously, I mean, we don't know who it is. I mean, that's what they're sort of. That's what the motorsport.com news article was saying. But whether it is, I mean, you've also got to look at, it could equally be, Will Power or Ryan Briscoe or any of those people. But I mean, Will certainly got the money. I imagine probably even Ryan has, but yeah, I mean, it'd be what a great place to
Well,
have a house.
if
Eh?
you missed, if you did miss out and you got pipped by the post, but one of those expats that you were just talking about, there's always the one down the road that's 3.5 mil anyway. So it's been on for sale for a bit longer. So you'd be in good company anyway, and you can always toast a beer to the a race when you're out there with them.
I don't necessarily want to have a house there. I just like to know somebody who's got a house there that I could crash for the weekend. Just sort of like pick up and say, hey, I'm coming up for the 1,000. Let me camp in the backyard. That's all I'd need.
I suppose squatting's out of the question, is it?
What's
I'll
that?
tell you. I'll tell you who would like the place there right now because they're quarantined up in Darwin. And we were talking about off air. GRM are doing their 2 weeks' time up in the Northern Territory, still preparing for the big race next week.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see whether they get up and the situation's going to court or gone to court with Nathan Hearn. Like I said last week, I mean, I can understand both sides of the case, but I can certainly understand it from the point of view of Motorsport Australia in that they have criteria to get a super license. It's very clearly laid out as to what you need to do. And and at this stage he hasn't done it. I mean, it's like saying, well, okay, he's driven all of these other races, but
he's been in the tin. He's in the tin tops, which is basically it's sort of a tier around about the Super 2, Super 3, but it's a Billy Budget version of it.
Yeah, and that's not at Bathurst. I think he might have had one race at Bathurst in the TA2. Oh look, he's probably more than capable. He seems to be a very capable driver. Gary and Barry are not fools. I mean, they're good. They're very, very good spotters of talent, and they obviously think this kid can handle it. They wouldn't. I think I know them. They're not close friends or anything, but I think I know them by reputation well enough to know that neither of them would go out and do anything really, really stupid just for the sake of money or something. They wouldn't run this kid. They wouldn't even think of running the kid unless they thought he was capable of doing the job adequately. So, I don't know. It's going to be interesting because what worries me is that if this does come through, that it could just sort of open the floodgates, and we're going to get a whole bunch of sons of rich fathers who are going to sort of look for the path of least resistance up to a supercar drive by going through other avenues.
Oh well, yeah. Aren't you, Richard, and I all putting in a car next year into the Bathurst 12 Hour? If this sort of opens the door for everyone, we can all jump on. Stuart can go mechanic because he's best on the tools and then what we are, and we could all enter a car anyway.
No, I'll take first stint, thank you.
We've kind of been there with Alex Rollo. I can remember with Alex Rollo, and we kind of sort of ended up in all sorts of trouble at races with him, and so I'm sort of on the side of Motorsport Australia, really.
Well, there was also that, and his name escapes me. His name escapes me right now. But he was like a very wealthy businessman. I think New Zealander years ago. Because I know I did a gag on the show about him not lasting. Sort of so and so crashed, tried to get out of the hotel car park. Because every time he got behind the wheel of a car, and it didn't seem to matter what sort of a car, he would crash and cause all sorts of havoc. And that's one of the reasons they brought in the super license, because a lot of the drivers just went round and went, oh, for God's sake. Anybody out there who remembers this guy's name, David someone, but he had lots of money, lots of ambition, but not a lot of talent.
That's the old saying when the talent's been outweighed by lack of talent's been outweighed by the ambition.
And the money.
Well, that'd be like the wall at the pit straight in the Canadian Grand Prix. It's called the talent wall because of all the talent that's hit it when they ran out of talent.
Well, sort of, Bathurst is like a whole talent wall, isn't it? I mean, it's
Oh yeah.
yeah, you've got to you sit there and you have a look at the thing, and you think that that's it's a dangerous place. We know it's a dangerous place. It's one of the most challenging race circuits on the face of the planet. And as you were pointing out before, Stuart, I mean, when you look at people like AJ Foyt and Johnny Rutherford and those sort of people who came out here in the day and got behind Bathurst and then sort of drove back into the pits and went, like hell, we're going to run are you off your head? I mean, Johnny Rutherford, for the place freaked. This is a very, very talented driver in the multiple Indianapolis 500 winner, and he turns around and he went, and I mean, if you're not scared of Indianapolis, I mean,
well, while
They
you're
basically
talking
turned around and got back on the boat, didn't they?
while you're talking Indy and supercars, there's a new track that might be looks in the works of being built by a very rich family called the Wagner family up in Northern Territory, who've decided a while ago they built an airport and successfully done it. And now they want to build a track that could seat 40,000 people, a 5,000 guest hotel, and they're even, well, the Queensland government's decided they want to promise some extra gorillas, and you never know. They reckon it could be up to IndyCar stand and might get some visit again. But although it's going to take a lot of money to get them back out to Australia.
the one thing the one thing in their favour is the problem that IndyCar were quite keen to come back here to Australia. The problem was they need to come at the right time, and the right time is not the time that the Queensland and the government and the Gold Coast Council wanted. I mean, they IndyCar would like to come back here early in the year, around the same time as that's the problem. It's around the same time as the Grand Prix. It's around the same time as the Clipsal or the Adelaide 500. So they don't want to, they don't want to come and set up another race at that time of year, another race in February, March. But they would love to do that because IndyCar would love to come back. Certainly the drivers. The only problem is, once again, they would need to consider some sort of lighting, because it's the same problem that the Grand Prix has. The time difference kills it.
From USA.
Well, if they came back at the start of the season, like for summer, it would match the US a little bit better. And no one would complain about us having the final Grand Prix of the year and everybody go for a holiday afterwards.
Well, the teams wouldn't. I mean, that's one of the things the teams loved at Adelaide, is that, like, everybody came. It's like, we finish there, we pack up, we send the cars back home, and everybody stays for a week or two. They go up, some people went back, so they didn't stay in Australia, but they might have gone up to Malaysia, they might have gone to Singapore, wherever they wanted, Vietnam or Thailand, wherever they wanted to go, they could go in that direction and have an end of year sort of relaxation and a party. And a lot of the teams loved that, and a lot of the drivers loved it. I know Jenson Button in particular, you said, I really regret sort of Adelaide going away, because it was a fantastic race, fabulous atmosphere, and it just had that end of school. It was like we say with Ireland at the local level, Ireland Magic here. It's the end of school breakup, and it had that vibe. And of course you had the other thing is that you at the end of the year, because it was the end of the year, you get all the teams wanting to get rid of this year's gear, including things like race suits, and because you'll see around around club meetings and that, somebody wandering around in an old Benetton suit, and where did you get that? Oh, I was in Adelaide and paid this guy $300 for it.
Well, speaking of events that you said that switching around, the ARG group has still got December for Sandown on. That's something that hasn't been cancelled yet. We might see it yet, maybe without spectators.
Yeah, well, we'll have to see. They've cancelled the Bathurst International, which was pretty which was pretty obvious. Also, the interesting thing is Andrew Westacott has come out in the last week and said that there are no plans to switch the MotoGP
Yeah.
and the Australian Grand Prix, because obviously that was a rumour that was going around. That was certainly what I'd been told from a few people who should know in that situation. But they're saying, no, that's not the case. I still can't see how they can possibly. I suppose the only way you could do it is to have an early test season for Formula One at Spain, and then basically everybody jumps onto their planes and they come out here and they quarantine somewhere for 14 days and then come and do the race and then go back to where they came from. But then they're probably going to have to quarantine there as well. So yeah, I still can't see how it's going to happen.
Somewhere you don't have to quarantine. Bryant Park's just put up a few events down there as well, though, too, for later on in the year. So good luck to them. Hopefully they can have something. They're counting on, obviously, the restrictions being lifted with Melbourne area, because obviously they'll get a few more entries from the whole of the state. Otherwise, it'll sort of limit.
I think they need to be careful with that. I think from judging from what, watching the presser today, there will be a lift in restrictions, but they're not going to be anywhere near as sort of radical as a lot of people think they are. A lot of people think it's going to be like, rip off the mask, jump in the car, and everything's back to normal again. It's not going to be like that. I mean, as long as there are these mystery cases, and now the mystery cases and also cases in New South Wales are growing as well, because you got today there were actually more new cases in New South Wales than there was in Victoria. So, and they're sort of saying, if this keeps going, we're going to have to start looking at possibly going back into lockdown ourselves at some stage. So, yeah, we're a mile away from getting over this. There is no, it's going to be really, really difficult unless at some point collectively the world says, like, bugger it. People are going to get it. People are going to die. It is what it is.
Can I just say, I'd like to say God bless Fernando Alonso and Eddie Jordan. Thanks for some great news this week, guys.
What news was I didn't see that.
So Eddie Jordan came out and made a statement about Verstappen Hamilton should join Verstappen at the Red Bull team, and Verstappen accept him. And I asked Christian Horner what they thought about Eddie's comments, and Christian said, "What's he been drinking?" Thanks, Eddie. I love it.
Eddie has taken over from both Sir Jackie Stewart and Nicky Lauda in terms of the renter quote. I mean, if you want somebody to say something outrageous, if on a slow news week, you just give Eddie a call and say, "Hey, Eddie, what do you think about?" And Eddie will say something outrageous, and the Formula One will run it. So like that. So
sorry, go ahead.
It's people like that who turn up on things like A Current Affair and all of those sorts of programs. They're the same people. You get your Alan Peace, the body language guy. You get Nathan Scrooby from the Pedestrian Council. There's a whole bunch of round up the usual suspects. You're sitting there going, there's nothing. I've got nothing at all. There's not a story. Hang on, ring insert name here and say, "Hey, what do you think about? You've killed 20 minutes."
And also, as I said, God bless Fernando Alonso. God, I love his honesty, and good on him for backing himself and throwing it out there. He says what he means and he backs it up and means what he says as well too. Did you catch what he said?
He's got nothing to prove anymore. I mean, in terms of
nothing wrong with putting Hamilton back in his place.
No,
okay, we missed that. So let's have some detail on it.
So Fernando, I won't go into all the quotes, but I did write a couple down deliberately. He came out with they've all been saying, obviously Hamilton's only one win away from equaling Michael Schumacher's record of wins, and only one championship away from equaling Michael Schumacher's. And everyone's going, who are you comparing him to, Senna or Schumacher or whoever it may be? And they must have asked Fernando on it, and he just said calmly, it was on a podcast or an interview or something, and he said, Michael is always going to be one step ahead because for a number of reasons he quoted, but one was when Hamilton was racing back in, I think back in, who was we racing years ago? Jensen was in the team. Jensen was the team, and he couldn't beat Jensen. And then when he was with Mercedes, Nico still beat him as well, though, too. Whereas Schumacher was out and out, always the better driver than his teammate. So, yes, Fernando admitted that Hamilton's probably the best modern day driver that has been around to this day, but he's never really had the someone who can challenge him with the same equipment, or he's been beaten by just as, equally with the same equipment as well too.
That's why I think it's going to be interesting with what they do in terms of replacing Honda and whether Mercedes would supply Red Bull. I think it would be a really smart move by Mercedes to supply Red Bull, because the quality of it's like the old wrestling line, the quality of your heel or of your hero, of your face, is dictated by the quality of your villain. And right now, if Mercedes go on and win for the next 3 or 4 years, and they've got nobody really, so the only real competition they've got at the moment on a regular basis is Red Bull. And if Red Bull are going to be hamstrung by out of date or underperforming engines, then that's nothing to rave about. Oh yeah, it's like sort of Mike Tyson going in and saying, yeah, I beat up a whole bunch of flyweights. That's if Mercedes could supply the engine to Red Bull, it would give them 2 chances to win a championship, because you would have the 2 top teams and the 2 top chassis running the same engine. So whichever one wins, Mercedes wins either way. And then if Lewis does beat Verstappen, and they do beat Red Bull, they can turn around and say, well, yeah, I mean we beat them on talent, we beat them on merit. They can't say, oh, our engine was underperforming, our engine wasn't as good as yours. It'll be the same engine. It just comes down to a fight between drivers, teams, and designers.
A cat amongst the pigeons, though, and there are respectable calls for this. And I agree with this. This sounds good. It's a good chance for them to leap forward, is to bring the 2026 regulations forward slightly on the engines. That way they can bring the new engines, new manufacturers, rather than just having to stuck with the 3 manufacturers we're going to have now for a couple of years after Honda pulls out the end of next year. So if they actually start the process of bringing it forward now and try and get new manufacturers in for engines, especially with the announcement with Honda, there's been a bit of a slap in the face to Formula One, because when they announced they were going to leave, in their statement, they said that we are going to look at other avenues and developing our powertrains or power plants in other race formats or other development around the world. And Formula One's saying, well, aren't we the peak? Aren't we the number one? Aren't we the highest level you can get into doing this sort of stuff? Which they are, but Honda's saying,
no,
well,
Formula One hasn't been that for a long time.
That's but Formula One think they are, though.
But Honda is looking at like electric cars and electric e-racing, and then the more environmentally friendly situations.
The interesting thing is, they specifically said in the press release, apart from there, is that one of the areas that they are really keen to develop on more and more, and I put the post on our Facebook page. The thing we were looking for more and more was was hydrogen. That was something that they're really keen to look at. Well, as it happens, it just so happens to turn out that in 2024 there will be a dedicated hydrogen class at the Le Mans 24-hour race. There's already talk that Hyundai and BMW are very keen to get involved.
Hydrogen's a dead end. Hydrogen's a dead end technology. Yes, they can roll it out using LPG, but for cars on the road, it's a dead end. Just to what Doc was saying about Formula One, Formula One hasn't been the leader in technology in a long time.
Oh, no.
Le Mans cars are. But here's a question for engines. If they brought the rules forward, is there a manufacturer ready to go? And also, would that open the door for an American manufacturer to come in? Because the current engines are V6s, which are very common in the US. So they could look at any sort of link there to sell more cars. I mean, when have we had an American engine manufacturer actually in Formula One? The closest we would have is the Cosy, which
Yeah,
is
that would
Ford of
something
Europe.
with all the hard Ford.
Was Ilmore in there? Yeah.
Toyota have always said no, we never go back to Formula One, but you know, never no means yes. Sometimes down the track, if
Toyota
it
of the
suits
US
them.
might be able to sell cars with it.
Well, Toyota,
Yeah.
the problem is,
Yeah.
I mean, this is why people have said, well, oh, Honda got out of Formula One, but they've recommitted to the new engine regulations at Indianapolis. But it's a different. It's not the Honda. It's not Honda the company. It's Honda Performance Development, which is a bit like the difference between Holden when it was here and the Holden Racing Team or Walkinshaw Performance. So it's a separate. There is a connection there, but it's not coming directly out of the budget for Honda Japan. So, I don't know. I mean, the problem is hydrogen. The problem with hydrogen is, well, one, making it, but also it's storing it and taking it, traveling it around, and that's
No, storing it and transporting it's easy. It uses the same technology as LPG. The problem is it doesn't have the calorific value compared to even methane that LPG has.
Going back
And yes, the
to,
bell is the cat.
Yeah, that's right. When you said methane, I get the Mad Max thing back again every single time in their head. Methane, the pigs, and all that sort of stuff. Sorry, it's just you can't help that. As soon as you say methane, Mad Max. Anyway,
And Shane.
yeah, I totally agree. But
Pete?
Shane Van Gisbergen and Greg Murphy are going to be in a stage at Rally New Zealand.
Yeah, that's that's they're heading back home. This is one of the good things about Bathurst. Finishing up the season early, it frees up a lot of people to go off and obviously Scott can go off and do his race at the Indy Karts in Petersburg, and Giz is heading back to New Zealand to do some rallying.
That'd be good.
That's interesting. The other thing that's come, I mean, this is embargoed. I'm going to break the embargo because, bugger it, I feel like it. There will be, obviously, with Bathurst coming up, there will be special features at Bathurst and special tributes paid over the weekend to the end of Holden, because obviously this is going to be the very last official Holden racing team run at Mount Panorama and in supercars, because obviously the season cuts off at Bathurst this year. So this will be very definitely the end of an era. Although there will be the ZB Commodores will be running next year, because
Hang on, Brett,
replace them with.
Did you say end of an era or end of an era? Because I'm pretty sure Ford fans would like the second spelling.
Well, possibly, but I mean, the thing is, once again, I mean, this is Ford's problem. I mean, what good is it going to do if they go back to Bathurst next year and they say, Ford finishes top 8 at Bathurst? Big deal. Yeah.
Speaking the end of whatever you want to call it, Holden's not dead. GMH is not dead. Mr. Mark Ebol from, formerly known as Holden, is now going to be in charge of GMSU and in charge of the service outlets, Walkinshaw supplying parts to Walkinshaw United, and the Isuzu brand here in Australia. So, and that's Australia and New Zealand as well. So they're going to hang around a little bit longer than what we thought they were in a capacity which probably a lot of Holden owners would like to see, because they might get a few parts for their cars still.
Well, they said they have made the statement in the release, which I've just broken the embargo on. They have they have committed. Holden have said, we are committing to our current owners, to anybody who's bought a car in the last few years or anything. We are committing that we will be around in terms of supplying spare parts, in providing services. We will make sure that there are parts and that available for at least the next 10 years.
That's a legal requirement.
Well,
that's a legal requirement
Yeah,
under
that's right.
consumer law in Australia. They had to keep parts for the period of the warranty. The moment the warranties run out on a Commodore, there will be no spare parts unless you're getting them manufactured. They won't give a
7
shit.
years, is it, Stuart? Did you happen to take
Yes.
note? You just-
Well, it depends on the warranty. If it's a 5-year
Yeah.
warranty, they keep it for that. If it's a 7-year, yeah.
So I suppose it's just worst case scenario. It would have been about 7 years, I think, then.
Yeah, but anyway, that's what's going to happen at Bathurst. Is going to be the big, the sort of big celebrations.
No
over the course of
surprises
the
there.
weekend. So yeah, I mean that was, and they were going to at Bathurst International as well, and Bathurst Challenge. Now that's it. The Bathurst International, but I haven't heard the Bathurst Challenge, the Yeehaw event. Haven't heard if that's still going ahead or not. But Bathurst.
Well, the Americans sponsoring it, are they?
No, well, Yeehaw were the people who, like originally brought back the 12-hour and got that up and running, and then they eventually sold it off to supercars. But they run fabulous events. Yeehaw, yeah, I mean that was when it was really fun to go to the Bathurst 12-hour because it had that sort of fun. That whole sort of fun vibe, that whole sort of, it was very much an enthusiast vibe, and the challenge has been very, very, very popular over the years. So, but I haven't seen anything about that. I don't know whether they've cancelled it already or they're still waiting. But certainly the international was cancelled today. I know our mate Richard was looking to try and get in. There was an Excel race planned for that weekend, and he was trying to get a gig there, but yeah, that's all out the window now. So,
And a little bit of an in-pit lane announcement today you made that we should be able, if things relatively get somewhere near to us moving any further than 5Ks outside our backyard. That's if you're Brett up in Bathurst right now, lucky bugger. But that's where he's just anyone watching there. That's just a media wall he's got behind him. He's really up there on Conrod Straight. But some in-pit lane news today. If we can start filming, there's a few events that are all planned out next year. Some of them suit us, don't they, Brett?
Well, the Victorian State Circuit Racing Championship have announced their tentative calendar for 2021, and it's a lot more likely that that's going to go ahead. The good thing for us, as I said on the Facebook page, is that if you look at it, if we can get back into the studio, and if we can get, there's lots of big ifs here involved in this, but if all goes according to plan, then out of the 5 rounds, we will be on air for 4 of them. So that opens up the possibilities of obviously, going out filming stuff, getting more guests in, being able to promote the event, whether they want us to promote it or not. So that's good. That's good for us. It would only be the July Sandown round, the hot dog round, which we wouldn't be on air for at the time. But yeah, as I said, there's a lot of big ifs. With the university has got, RMIT needs to reopen again. They need to make a commitment to opening the studio to RMITV. Then RMITV have got to put up their hand and say, yes, we would like you guys to come back. And Channel 31 has got to be around as well, because once again, we're in the same deal as we were last year. The government have said that on June the 30th, Channel 31 and Channel 44 are being shut down. And
it's the same villain again too. Mr. Paul Fletcher will still be in charge of things.
That's it. There's been no there's been absolutely no back down on their thing. And as we saw in the budget last, and as we've seen right throughout this whole pandemic nonsense, the current federal government have absolutely no interest in supporting the arts and entertainment industry at all. So
no, it's jobs, more jobs, and if you don't want, you get a job, and that's just everything's about jobs right now. Number 1 priority is jobs. Number 2 priority is jobs.
I know.
Yeah, jobs except in any of the arts industries.
Yeah.
As long as you put you're a coal mining company on your tax return.
Yes, and preferably be under 35, and
yeah, and you can get a $200 a week subsidy if you're under 35 as well too. Yeah.
Yeah, which will happen as the last one. The last time they did this, and I was involved in this. I had a gig at a newspaper because of that very thing, and it was like, hey, we want to have you on board because we get a subsidy for 6 months. As soon as the 6 months finished out, it's like, we'd love to keep you, but bye bye.
Yeah,
So
unless there's another.
Yep.
Unless there's another subsidy along. Exactly.
We know that can happen.
Just a tip as well, though, too, with all what's going on in the world, and we're unlucky or fortunately, if we're not living in the US, you possibly could be. A friend of mine decided to get on today and get onto Twitter and decided to correct his teenage mature son on some of his grammar with a tweet back towards him. However, he decided to throw a little curveball and had a swipe at Donald Trump and got himself suspended. So all you people out there that have done all this sort of stuff before and got banned on Twitter or some other social media platform, just don't get onto any social media at the moment and take a veiled swipe at the president to be elect in the USA, because you'll get yourself banned at the moment.
It'll be off after the election's over.
Yeah, everybody's really sort of really nervous at the moment. We can't, we're not supposed to say the dreaded C word, and it's not that C word. It's the C19 word, because YouTube will instantly demonetize, and in some cases just take you off. Like, and I know there was one of the wrestling podcasts was talking about an outbreak of the disease at the WWE Performance Center, and they got their channel was taken down because it said, you're exploiting this to make, and the advertisers don't want to be associated with this. And you've got, when we set up the live streams, now we've got to say you won't talk about politics, you won't talk about this, you won't talk about that, you won't talk about the virus, you won't, there's a whole bunch of conditions you've got to go through. And if you sort of, move away from it, you get.
You're
So
just
how
talking
would
about
they
the
deal with how would they deal with the events of the last analog broadcast show we did?
Well, I forget what they.
Mr. Teschney earning himself $10.
Well, yes. Well, I don't think a lot of that actually went. I think it was sort of like a pink blur, sort of.
What was the subject matter,
Oh,
Stuart?
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was in the control room that night.
Well, what was the subject matter, Stuart?
One of the crew members accepted a dare to run naked around the studio.
It wasn't a dare. He got paid for it. As I said, he got more money in one night than I've got in 24 years.
Did notes come out? Did there?
Yeah, it was like, I dare somebody to do a streak around the studio, and it was like, well, cross my palm with silver coins, my friend, and see what happens. I'll never forget that when it happens, because
We had a female newsreader at the time.
Yeah, but
did he at least groom himself for the evening?
I didn't take. I just saw this white blur went past, and I'll never forget when he did it, because I was looking on my camera was Pavita, and she just went there and she just looked up and went, well, that's an image I'm not going to forget in a hurry, unfortunately.
Yes, and I believe the newsreader we had at the time now works for the ABC.
Oh, who was that?
I can remember her face, but I can't think of her name.
Why are you doing that? Why are you trying to think?
Dark hair.
Did he at least fake tan for the occasion as well?
No, it was very.
No. Spray tan, something, I don't know.
Yeah. But anyway, that was an interesting, and that's when we were live to Channel 31. It wasn't just live online; it was live to Channel 30.
Oh yeah,
Channel 31, which I'd love to do again. But
did you get a slap on the bum for that one? Did you, Brett?
No. I think in those days, because we went to air at 9:30, we were actually we were rated M back then, so we had a lot more freedom. We couldn't do it now because, of course, we go to air in sort of the family friendly time slot, particularly in Adelaide.
What?
So,
bless you, Stuart. Did anyone think to cue the Benny Hill music as well too while you were at it, just in case?
Yeah, that would have been perfect. Hey, listen.
Now these days we would get a YouTube strike for using yakety sax on air.
Well, that's the other thing too.
That's true.
You are so limited in what you can do and what you can say. It's a problem. I mean, for us on YouTube, in fact I was watching a podcast today and it just disappeared, and that was another case because of the COVID thing. They were talking about sort of the president and having the thing. I use the word then, so we might
Be careful what you say. You put
Yeah.
two words there.
And they were
It's
in the
got you
middle
on the
having- yeah.
line.
They were having a big argument about it, and suddenly the thing, I went, oh, I've lost the signal, and I went back 10 minutes later to check it out again, and it's like this video has been withdrawn by YouTube. So you've got to be really really careful. They are, and that's why if you're going to if Channel 31 or anybody, whether it's RMI TV, Channel 31, or any sort of community television or media organisation wants to go over, you can't. This idea of just start a YouTube channel is not going to fly, because the restrictions on YouTube channels are just so ridiculous that.
I can give you a alternative, but unfortunately it doesn't support streaming at the moment. They had to take it off.
Which one is that?
CocoScope.
Okay, I hadn't heard of that one.
You probably haven't. It's run by a model by the name of Piper Blush, who has adult material in her own content.
To Mr. and Mrs. Piper, a daughter, Piper.
Yeah, and if you click on the, I think it's the O in scope on their label. There is there's a 3D model you can download, and it's her thoughts on YouTube's policies. And I'll just leave it at that for people to find and enjoy.
I might have a.
Just on that? Is that video on YouTube that she's talking about YouTube?
No, but it'll be on her CocoScope.
Okay, just check. I was going to say, it'd be funny if she's bagging YouTube, but it'd be on YouTube as well too. But
there's plenty.
Yeah, it's probably on YouTube.
Yeah,
but the whole point is it's a video platform for artists by artists with a lot less restrictions. The other thing for artists at the moment is DeviantArt, of all people, are on a purge since they've been bought by Wix. Trust me on this one. Do not mention which country Wix is owned from on any chats on DeviantArt. That's the search part.
Oh.
They will catch people out that way. But it's this Middle Eastern country, but it's not Arabic, and it's not. Okay, you can figure it out.
Borat wouldn't have visited at some stage when he did some filming for any movies, by any chance? Borat?
No, it's a little closer to the Mediterranean, a little bit south of Lebanon.
I just happened to see a trailer during the week.
Let's get back on the motorsport.
Before we do get into trouble.
Yeah, before we do.
I'm not a fan of the new safety car rule, because they've done that at Formula One, where they.
Oh, you're a spoil sport, Peter. Come on.
I think the less time that the safety car is out, the better. And in Formula One, when they've done it with Formula One, where they allow the lap cars to catch up, the safety car's out. They clean the incident up, and they're safe. Then they do that, and the safety car's out for quite a while.
Well, the way they get around that at Le Mans, of course, is to have more than one safety car. It's not a problem at a short circuit. At a short track, it's not too bad, and I quite like it that way. But at a longer track, like Bathurst, or particularly like Le Mans or the Nürburgring or something, the safety car can be out 3 or 4 laps just waiting for the cars to get to there. But it shouldn't take that long. I mean, at most circuits in Australia.
I think it's a good way of taking out the rubbish. It's a good way of taking out the rubbish.
Actual change?
They're going to let lap cars get their lap back. So they're going to let lap cars overtake the safety car.
So like you'd see in NASCAR and IndyCar.
Yeah.
It's basically they wave past they wave past the lap cars. The way they do, the most extreme way they.
We also see that in sprint cars. Yeah, I think we do.
The most extreme version of that is in Super GT. If you watch Super GT, what they do is they basically pull up the whole field. They basically red flag the race. They pull up everybody who's on the lead lap. The leader is on the left hand side, or the left hand side of the track at the starting grid, and everybody who's a lap behind is on the other side. And then they move off, and they have like 2 separate restarts for this, so they don't get the lap back. They basically start sort of a lap behind.
Peter, what's
Yes.
the problem with a car that hasn't got its valve clearances the same as what a Mustang's got out there? Say, for example, getting it out of the way and getting it around to the back of the field, so that way when they have the restart, they're all not going to go smack into each other and they're going to be at the same pace. Because basically, yeah, you know, it could be valve clearances, it could be an extra bloody fuel. They might have an extra bloody, you know, a fuel pump inside their fuel tank or something like that. You got to get the slower ones out of the way, put them to the back of the field to let the top 10 cars so they don't go wacky whack.
No, I think it's
It's
better.
it's a hard thing to do because the problem is we've never got the safety car right in Australia, and I think they've got it right in America more often than not. America's got it pretty right, because it just takes the problem of having those. You know, you'll get that thing where they'll pick up the lead car, and then you'll have like 4 or 5 much slower cars behind lower, and the lead car just drives away and is gone, while the second place car is trying desperately to get past the lap runners. So they've got to separate them somehow, I think. So
Something to keep an eye out. Look it up, guys. While we're on the touring car stuff and Bathurst and that, if you're after a very nice Sierra Cosworth ex-Australian Tony Longhurst, because Benson was out trimming my hedges earlier, the number 6 car that was built over here is over in the UK, has been for a number of years, but it's been completely taken down to every nut and bolt, had a full rebuild, and is up for sale in the UK at the moment. So have a look at the restoration on that. It's I don't think I've seen an ex V8 supercar or touring car, whatever group A, B or C or N, whatever it is, in Australia that's been completely done that. They've spent on some big dollars over there in the UK. If you look at the list on how they've rebuilt everything, they basically started with just a couple of bits of tin and welded it together.
that's one of the problems of getting stuff from overseas, though, is that you're never sure of the history. I looked at a car on a site the other day, and I thought, hang on a second, isn't that car in Australia? And I contacted the guy who runs it, and he went, yeah. He said, I've got the car. They've got a steering wheel and a couple of body panels, and they've just basically rebuilt a car from whatever, and they're saying, oh, here it is, this is the Alan Jones Formula 5, and it's like, no, it's not. um, but the thing is, the Australian cars, it's a double-edged sword, because the Australian cars are worth a lot because the provenance on them is very, very well credentialed, because the people like the Victorian Historic Racing Register and the Historic Commission for Motorsport Australia are absolutely fascist about the, like this, if you say you've got to prove it with forensic detail that is that original car, and it's not just something you've hacked together with a whole bunch of spare parts from somewhere with, like an engine plate or a chassis plate or something like that. The downside of that is when cars are sort of basically being destroyed, and from whatever is left over, they do a rebuild, like the ex John Cannon March. You can't run it in Australia. They won't give it a certificate. They take it overseas. It gets a certificate over there. It can come back to Australia and race somewhere like the Phillip Island Classic, but it can't stay in Australia. It's got to go back over there, because in Europe and America and everywhere else, it's considered the original car, whereas in Australia, it's like, no, it's got bits of the original car in it, but not that many bits.
I saw a car come up this week on one of the groups I belong to. A guy named Peter Brock was related to this guy through an engineer called, I think he's speaking of Benson and doing the hedges again, Wayne Gardner. Yeah, I think he was pretty good on a couple of wheels, but not 2 wheels, not 4. He's put more, I think 4 wheels he put into other cars, and that talent wall that Stuart was talking about earlier, I think. He lacked a little bit of that at times.
For Wayne, isn't it a Talon sandpit?
Oh, yeah, exactly. Oh, he found lots of ways to keep it anything but on the tarmac. Anyhow, they tried a stunt years ago, Wayne and the Holden company. As I said, he was rated the Peter Brock by engineer, and they created a Wayne Gardner Commodore limited edition. It fell.
I don't remember that.
It was flatter than a pancake in the end of it, but they managed to churn out 33 versions of it in a S1, S2, and S3 version of it, and that was the tier on the entry level being S3. So you got the Billy Budget Wayne Gardner Coca-Cola style model that's just come out of the sandpit that Stuart just mentioned, or the S1 was the top of the range and had all the bits and pieces and bits and bobs and all the swish stuff. Car number 2, which was personally owned by Wayne and has the certification letter and the logbook for servicing, etc. like that, has just come up for sale this week at a not too bad a price. A VS Commodore Wayne Gardner Special that includes the wing at the back and all the signatures and all the stuff through it. 60 grand.
Well, yeah, that's
That's not bad.
Yeah, under the circumstances, I mean, it's anything you buy. It's like I think I said last week. Like anything you buy now that is sort of an Australian quote muscle car unquote from virtually any era now in 10, 20 years time, it's going to be worth an awful lot of money. Unless of course we get sort of things get so bad that they just say right, all petrol powered cars are banned from ever starting an engine again, and they've got to be put in a block of glass and never started.
I will add to that. You can take my Slant 6 from my cold dead hands.
That may happen.
Yeah, well, the way things are going in some places, but I think they're going to get a nasty shock that when they get to sort of 2030 or whenever it is that they want to do this, they look around. It's going to be it's still not ready for prime time, is it? This I mean, we're getting there, but
No, they'll do it through attrition. They'll just do it through attrition. The average car will end up being an EV. There's no doubt about that. As long as they keep being reasonably well informed about the historic car registration, there will still be enough space. And given the amount of pollution that the classic cars in Australia make compared to the whole fleet, it's negligible.
Yeah, it's the same with motorsport. I mean, there was somebody yelled out, there was a cry out years ago to ban Formula One because of the pollution, and they did a survey and they found out they did an audit basically and found out that one Rolling Stones concert in America used as much energy as the entire Formula One season.
Yeah. Just also, I picked up during the week a newsworthy item was that. What do you call it? The NRMA, which is the equivalent of RACV in Victoria, and the motoring body, independent motoring bodies, I suppose has a little bit of government input. Is going to take in the next 12 months from 25 electric powered stations to fill their car up from 25, and they're going to take an extra 35 in the state of New South Wales. So they're going to basically 25 to 60 in 12 months.
They're going to have to because, I've done the theoretical look because I was going to at one stage try and get a Nissan Leaf or a Kona, an electric Kona from Hyundai, and actually use it to drive up to the Bathurst 12 Hour, which is what I did years ago with the Renault, with the van. The petrol.
You get to Winton. That's about as far as you get.
That was the problem. You could get almost up there, but once you got up there, it was like it would get me as far as one tank would get me as far as Gundagai, and then when you had a look at the recharging options at Gundagai, there weren't any, and it was like, oh no, if you want to get like the fast recharge and all the rest of it, and you want to go up to Bathurst, the best way to do it is to go via Canberra. Canberra's a long way out from Gundagai. You're going that way, so. But that was a few years ago. But even now, if you go and have a look at the planning, it's like and you can't just plug in to your regulars and say, oh well, just run a lead out from your motel room. One, how are you going to get it out there without jamming things indoors and all the rest of it? And two, if it's just regular power, these things take forever. The Kona takes something like 26 hours to reach on standard. on standard
Yeah.
240,
power
240
supply,
volts, yeah.
240 volts, it takes 26 hours to fully recharge.
Yep.
Look, there's a business model there for any small business owners, like running those little independent petrol stations where just cover the roof of the place with solar cells, charge up a power wall, and just put a fast charger in there. While somebody comes in and gets something to eat at the cafe, they can recharge the car. It's not a big deal. And all they've got to do is the investment. And if the solar cells are there, they can always sell power to the local community if they're not using it to recharge vehicles.
Which is why it'll probably never happen, because the big energy companies will go, yeah, no, we're not doing that.
They're already on their last legs with the virtual power stations that have been set up, like roofs of or buildings and what have you, with solar cells, and they all pull together and provide as much power into the grid as a regular coal-fired or gas-fired power station.
When you
so there is business models there, and it will drive things forward. But what would be interesting is how much of that EV technology is going to filter down from things like Formula E into real cars. And has there been a rule change with Formula E with no longer doing driver swaps between cars? Are they doing battery swaps now? I haven't checked that.
No. They're running the technology has improved to the stage that they run the whole race. The race.
I remember you used to swap cars at one stage there too.
They haven't done that for the last couple of years, so that's not the problem that it used to be. So that the technology, and as they pointed out, like with Toyota's win at Le Mans this year, as they pointed out, it was done with half the fuel that they used for their first victory. That's how much more, that's how more effective, and they haven't really, taken it to the to the next level. So. Yeah, I mean, the technology is changing rapidly, but I just want to.
The flow-on effect is, as Stuart was saying, sometimes it takes a little bit longer these days because of the costs involved.
The problem is,
I did notice watching the onboard from Le Mans, the Toyotas on the way in and out of the pits, they were running it as an EV. It wasn't until they came off the speed limiter that you heard the engine kick up, and away they went.
Yeah, they've done that since the first one, when they had the capacitors. They were always running in and out of the pit lane as a full EV vehicle, and only kicking in the internal combustion engine as they went back out onto the racetrack. That's why they tried to get home when the car broke down on the last lap a couple of years ago. They were hoping that they could get it home just on the electric power, but they just didn't. On a track that big, they just didn't have enough power to get all the way around. Although they did say that if it had happened this year, they might have made it.
Wow.
I did notice earlier, late last week or earlier this week, an ad appearing on Facebook for electric vehicle conversion kits for some GM cars in the United States.
Oh.
Caveat emptor.
Yeah, there's also a company down in Geelong that are specialising in converting minis to electric.
Oh, okay.
New minis or old minis? Because old minis would be interesting.
Yeah, no, old minis. It's a kit. Apparently, it's a relatively simple, straightforward. You lose the back seat for the battery.
But
But
not a big deal in a mini.
not a big thing in a mini.
Well, there's not much room under the bonnet anyway.
And apparently, like,
All the boot.
seriously quick.
Yeah, it would be.
I think I told you, Stuart, I replaced a speedo cable once. I think it took me 5 hours. I'm exaggerating a little bit here, but there's but the speedo cable is one of the hardest things to replace. Yeah. They are tighter than I'll just use your imagination.
Shark's bottom.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I had to do
Okay,
it.
that'll
No,
do.
it's like, the other thing with EVs, Flea from Red Hot Chili Peppers had a convertible Camaro, like one of the early 70s ones, for years, that was converted to EV and would basically smoke both tyres and turn up to like different events, and everybody's going, "Oh, why are you driving this old muscle car?" And he goes, "It's EV." And there is a mob in the UK doing the same.
Big electric guitar.
To me, that's sacrilege. I mean,
Well, the ones they've been doing in the UK
Camaro.
are things like Lancias and baby Porsches and what have you, and like small, lightweight sports cars, and they go like stink. Well, they actually go faster with the EV conversion than they do with the petrol engine.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we know that we know in terms of acceleration, they just they'll
Yeah.
smoke almost anything that's running around. But yeah, at the moment, I think for what I had, I mean, I've been looking at the Kona and thought, well, if I ever had the money, the Kona, the Hyundai Kona, looks like a really good practical EV. But until I want to take it to places like Bathurst or even Winton or Phillip Island and all that, at the moment we're not quite there in terms of being able to have the infrastructure to just pull up at the nearest, you know, service station and just say I'm going to grab a hot chocolate and a hamburger or something, or I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to find the nearest pub for an hour or half an hour
Until tomorrow morning.
away.
26 hours later, Stuart said in some cases.
Was that right?
So you don't want to leave it to charge overnight from solar power.
Yeah.
Oh,
Someone will try it. Someone already has tried it, I bet. There you go.
Anyway, anything else? Well, we got now this week it is the Nürburgring
Moto
race.
GP's back this
German
week.
Grand Prix.
Yeah, German Grand Prix this week, and the weather forecast is looking really interesting. It might even snow.
And actually, last year in Germany it rained, and Lewis Hamilton winning is actually not a given because last year it rained, and they didn't do very well. The Mercedes.
Oh yeah, I think that if it rains, that certainly it definitely opens it up more to Red Bull and also to our own Dan Ricciardo and a few others. I mean, some of the Haas guys were quick in the rain. It'd be fabulous if it was really, really cold and really, really wet. It'd be
And not get
fabulous.
red flagged because of the weather. They let them still race, and
Yeah,
then
just
we'd see it on.
And not behind the safety car.
Because
Yeah.
then
When was the
Lewis would
last
be
time
on.
we saw? When was the last time we saw full wets in a race?
For a whole race, gee, it'd be a while.
Excuse me. Thank you.
It's a while, I think. Yeah.
Hi, Corona.
God. I'll just go and get a line with that. But yeah, the other thing is we say if the race is continue, we don't want obviously not red flag, but if Lewis is out there behind the safety car, and I'll just say, well, let's parade around for a couple of laps to get some sighting and see how much spray's up. Yeah, this is too wet. I've got to get off. We can't race in this. It's like a deluge. We really don't want this bloody. I want my fish and chips.
Have you seen his latest tweet regarding Jenson Button? Jenson,
Is it related to the bloody Fernando Alonso bagging?
no, it's Jenson Button. Now I was a teammate of Jenson Button, and Jenson Button's unfollowed me, and Jenson Button doesn't believe. And then the next tweet comes out is, "Oh, I've just checked. Actually, Jenson Button and I have never been friends on Twitter." Sorry, Jenson.
Talking
My
now,
bad.
that is just for a guy who can drive a Formula One race car quite capably, and then not only does he make a fool of himself, but he backhands himself or does a double whammy by realizing and putting it out there. Oh, I'll just shoot myself in the foot and say, oh no, he didn't anyway. Wouldn't you just shut up? Anyway.
Well, it's good that he corrected it, but at the same time, I mean, he's he really needs somebody to sort of take, and that's the problem of having sort of so many sycophants and having your old man as a manager and all the rest of it. You need somebody to drag him aside and sit him down and say, Lewis, you're a racing driver, drive cars, shut up.
Come back down to earth as well, though, too. You're not better than everybody else in the world.
yeah. Same reason they don't let jockeys talk to the media.
Yeah.
What? I'll just see if I can find some helium for you.
Yeah, g'day. We did a real good. Yeah, this is a real good horse. I reckon it's going to be really good on the weekend.
Yep, we're gonna get banned, kids.
One of my favourite things of all time. This is sport related. As I think Michael Veach or Peter Moon, they used to, everyone knows they're part of the Fast Forward crew, and they did a lot of radio stuff as the D generation years ago. And I remember one of them got on one day. It was on a radio station
from Moonee Valley.
Triple M, and then he goes, You know that horse that got nobbled in the Melbourne Cup? He did. He had a jockey on his back. He was nobbling him. And it's like, oh, guys, they're funny, Vici and Mooney. Anyway.
So do we have anything else to say? What time is there? I'm losing track of time.
It's just gone 10 o'clock.
Well, in that case, I think we might pull the plug on this, guys. And,
There we go. There's the time for you, Brett.
There we
There
go.
you go.
A live time graphic. Thank you to VMix.
That's not the countdown for the presidential election there. Have you got there, Stu? I won't elaborate any more than that.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are?
I will make one presidential comment. 3 days to recover, yet Boris Johnson was in hospital for 2 weeks. I wonder where that virus was engineered.
I've told you, I've been around enough to know a work when I see one, and that was a work. That was, well, look, I don't know.
Brett, it was a miraculous cure.
How many spin doctors does it take to cure a virus?
And it was
five by the looks of it.
I know what the councillors over here going for all that election should do. They need to get some sort of virus that's around at the moment and go the sympathy vote.
That would be good.
Me too.
It was a great vote. A gift from God. And now he's saying, surprise, surprise, that the experimental drug that he took, which just so happens to be owned by one of his best friends and business colleagues, it was so remarkable. We're going to make it freely available to all Americans now. It's going to cost us a lot of money, but
we're going to charge the Chinese.
Like that's worked so well in Mexico for a while.
Oh, bad luck to the.
Perhaps they could swap it around. Perhaps the Mexicans can pay for the drugs, and China can build the wall because they've got form.
Yeah, let's just bring it back to motorsport for a second. Is there a Mexican stunt driver who could jump the wall in a Baja car? Because I would love to watch that.
I'm sure there is.
Captain Risky could do it.
Captain Risky.
Okay, guys, we'll kill that for this one. As I said, if you're watching on the In Pit Lane YouTube channel and you want to join us, and if you're sitting there thinking these people are full of shit, just say, well, come along and just join us, and you can be full of shit too. So
yes, we are.
So join us next week, 9 o'clock Australian Eastern Daylight Saving Time. It's very confusing at the moment. There are time zones all over the place, all over the world, and everything's out of. I think it's either 10 o'clock UTC or 1300 UTC or 12 UTC or something. But anyway,
it doesn't confuse the cows.
No, well, it confuses the hell out of me. But I hope you're enjoying the weekend. Oh, now coming up, if you like historic racing. Coming up this weekend on the In Pit Lane the In Pit Lane webpage, inpitlane.com, we will have links to a major historic meeting that's happening in Europe, run by Peter Auto. Peter Auto, they do a lot of they do the Le Mans Classic. They did the Le Grand Prix de l'Âge d'Or, which we went to the first at Montlhéry, and then when it moved to Dijon, we went to both those. One of the best run meetings, the friendliest people, just fabulous, and they have the most extraordinary turnout of cars that you have ever seen, and there will be all sorts of wonderful things there. So that's coming up both Saturday and Sunday on the In Pit Lane webpage, inpitlane.com. Also, of course, we've got the Grand Prix coming up, and of course, we're getting ready for Bathurst. So I suppose that's one thing we can talk about next week when we get together for another edition of Full Course Yellow. So from all of us here, from our various homes under lockdown, we're going to end the stream. We're going to say goodbye to you. Remember, if you want to be a part of it, go to the Jot Form page or drop us a line on the Facebook page, and we'll catch you same time next week for another edition of Full Course Yellow. Until then, from all of us, bye for now.
We need theme music.
We need theme music. Da, 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 da.